Welcome to the San Jose Hockey Now podcast. I'm Sheng Peng, editor-in-chief of San Jose Hockey Now. You can also find my work at MEC Sharks and on Twitter at Sheng_Peng.
And I'm Keegan McNally. You can find my work at halfwall_hockey on Twitter and at half-wallhockey.com or at San Jose Hockey Now. This week, Sheng, fun, exciting episode to prep us for training camp, right?
Yep. Training camp starts on September 21st. The Sharks released the training camp roster, but there are no real big surprises on it. So we'll talk more about training camp when that actually starts. But today, though, we're going to focus on the Rookie Faceoff. Rookie Faceoff just happened in Las Vegas, happened on Friday, Saturday, and Monday. At least those were the Sharks games. I was there for two of those three games in Las Vegas. And anyway, we're just going to talk about our impressions and just, I talked with a couple of scouts over there too, and so I'll probably add a couple of their thoughts too to this whole proceedings. But first, so we're just gonna go through not the entire lineup, not the entire rookie face-off roster for the Sharks, but just some of the guys that stood out to us. And Keegan's gonna get us started.
So we almost always start these kind of things with the forwards first, right? We always go with forwards, defenders, goaltenders. So we're going backwards this time. Also because it's going to be, I know, we're going to go goaltenders, then defense and forwards. And if we remember,
we're going in the reverse of strength of position for the Sharks system. So
yeah, excellent.
so we're going to end. We're going to go from the bottom, starting at the bottom and going to the top. Okay, so
yep, and yeah, I think you're right. It's not a position of strength for the Sharks currently. But I think two of the goaltenders showed up pretty well this weekend. So the starting order for the three games that they played this past weekend were Romanov, the recent signing in the spring of last year coming from Russia. He played the first game. Chrona played the second game. And then Mason Beaupit got the third start. I think it's one game. Any goaltender could have a bad game or a good game for one singular game. But Romanov actually, I think, showed off pretty well for that first game. He's used to different ice surfaces. He came in and had something like 40 saves in that first game, and looked like he belonged, at least to my eyes, at least. I think you mentioned that McCarthy actually mentioned his name too afterwards.
Yep, McCarthy mentioned that both Romanov and Chrona performed well. The one thing that I can mention about the goaltending is that Evgeny Nabokov appeared on the broadcast in between periods in the Arizona game. And in that broadcast, actually, Nabokov said that Makiniemi, they're not quite sure when he'll be ready to start I presume the Barracuda season. I have seen Makiniemi. I put a video up on him. Makiniemi has been working out with Nabokov, but kind of on his own though. He, as far as I've seen, Makiniemi hasn't participated in any captain skates yet. But anyway, that sets up an interesting scenario, though. If Makiniemi, who we presume will be the Barracuda starter or sort of the de facto guy, if he isn't ready, then you might start with two rookie goalies in the AHL, which is interesting. Or maybe they'll sign somebody, or waivers. I think they'll, for example, Toronto will have to pass Martin Jones through waivers. Columbus maybe with Aaron Dell. So maybe just bring back Jones and Dell, but to the Barracuda. So
I think that's a great idea. It's honestly, I think I can't remember the last time that the Sharks goaltending was this thin. You have Kakinen, who has never really taken the reins as your starter. You have Blackwood, who was quasi-starter for a couple of years, and then has been solidly backup or below level for a little while.
Yeah, because of injury, I will interject there. But yeah, no, he has struggled for a couple of seasons for sure.
And then third line would be somebody like Makiniemi, who's also injured, plus, maybe in and out of the lineup kind of thing. Then below that, you've got Chrona and Romanov, both rookies. That's like the Sharks' depth chart of goaltenders. Yeah, it's not looking great.
Maybe they are really trying to tank.
maybe this was maybe they really are. But I thought Romanov looked good, and Chrona had I think he let in one goal, something like that.
He did.
Beaupit was the youngest goaltender at the rookie faceoff for the Sharks. his game against the Coyotes, and there was like kind of like a group effort. The Sharks did not play well, but he
Sure.
also did not stand out well. He had a bunch of shots that were a little bit, um, let's call it leaky.
Yeah.
Leaky is my
Yeah.
favorite term for goaltenders.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shots that shouldn't have gone through that did. So he's going to go back to the WHL.
To our buddy Kevin Constantine's team.
Yeah, to the Wenatchee Wild. So we'll keep an eye on see how he does
Yeah.
throughout the WHL season. But
So anyway, yeah. Moving on to the now we're going to the defense, and
yeah,
this guy was, I think, the standout Sharks prospect here. And I spoke with one scout and I asked him, did you see anything you really really liked from the Sharks this weekend? And he looked at me and
oh no,
and nodded his head. Now this is like really really light though, so I
okay,
think that the Sharks did have a lot of good performances, but we're talking about and like projected them in the NHL kind of like.
hmm
But when I mentioned that Mukhamadullin stood out for myself, the guy's eyes lit up a bit, and so he agreed. And so with Mukhamadullin, we saw a great display of first his skating, both offensively and defensively, using his skating to cut down. When he's chasing the play a little bit, but to cut
hmm
down the forward ahead of him, he did that in I think the LA game. Jumping up, showing good instincts and feet to jump up. I think that was a 2-on-1 against Arizona off of a Robins pass. Also, too, on the power play, he would often be the quarterback of it, leading the rush up, and showing not just good stick handling, but deception too. Deceiving the forechecker, the F1, into going where Mukhamadullin wants it and going the other way. And so Mukhamadullin did show that too. And he also showed a very nice touch with his passing too, in
hmm
tight spaces with forecheck on him. So all very very encouraging signs. And also coupled with his size too, and even defensively too. I've talked about mostly offensive kind of things too. John McCarthy cited Mukhamadulin's improved gap control from last year, cutting down defensive space. A couple times it seemed like he really surprised the opposition with how quickly he was on them with his feet and his stick. I would say the one thing though, and I think Mukhamadullin overall is still raw, even though the Sharks do have a sore need for somebody to quarterback their power play, and it could be Mukhamadullin in the future. I think the Sharks are projecting that he can do that. Maybe not PP1, but at least PP2 in the future. But not yet though. Don't do that to him. Still very raw. Even in this tournament of younger players, was guilty of doing too much at
yeah.
times. Got himself caught in bad positions a couple of times, turnovers, that sort of thing. And so, but overall, though, the balance of it is, I think, a prospect that's really on the rise, and you can see why the Sharks targeted him in the Timo Meier trade.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway. I agree. The Mukhamadullin was the prospect that every game that I watched stood out to me the most as like
Mm-hmm.
the prospect that looks the part that he can play in the NHL the most. Like fits the archetype that he could be. Pretty much every time that he was out there. So I agree. His speed was really on display a lot. He can get ahead of steam going, carry the puck really well out of the defensive zone. He had one like really really good seam pass to Eklund that was super impressive from the first game that I remember. And then the power play quarterbacking, you're right. He can walk the blue line and kind of pick his spots really well. I don't know if his shot was totally on display this game or these games. As much as it is because I've seen him, he has a pretty good shot. It just wasn't like he was launching them all the time these games. But yeah, I think everybody kind of saw what Mukhamadullin could be in the future, and I like that a lot. And we're going to see him all this year on the Barracuda, probably, and then maybe he'll get some games in the NHL, or he surprises all of us and just makes the NHL out of training camp.
No, I don't. Training
I don't
camp
think
is a
so.
month away. I mean, it could happen.
know.
I will say that a couple years ago, Rookie Faceoff, William Eklund had just been drafted,
Yep.
and he did not look very, very impressive in the rookie
Hmm.
face-off, at least compared to his draft position. And
Yep.
there wasn't just myself who saw that. I talked to a number of scouts at that tournament, and they said the same thing, that Eklund, was a little bit, they thought that they might see a little bit more from him, considering that he was the seventh overall pick. But Eklund got better and better throughout a training
Yep.
camp. Eklund was terrific during the exhibit preseason that year, and he was clearly a top 9 Sharks forward. It was a very thin Sharks forward group, of course, but he was clearly a top 9 Sharks forward going into the 2021-22 season, which is why he started the season with the Sharks. Mukhamadullin, I think, has he skates well enough. The body is, he's
enough
sixth
physicality.
floor, and
Yeah.
he can use more strength and weight, I'm sure, but still there seems to be enough heaviness, enough strength there, that he might be okay at the NHL level. But the decision making still needs work. The defending still needs work, and doing that at the highest level is not a good idea. We talked last week about most disappointing Sharks prospects ever, and a scout that told me flat out, yeah, the Sharks rushed Miracle Mueller, and you don't want to do that with the Mukhamadullin.
Yeah, he's too important, I think, for the fate of the Sharks blue line.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was really impressed. And his speed actually seemed better than it was last year, even though he was pretty fast last year. So really liked his play. I think another guy that made a lot of headlines was Gannon Laroque. Just because Gannon Laroque was returning from injury from last year. His first game, I think he looked a little bit behind the play sometimes, but I think he also improved throughout the short showcase, and he had that first goal, I think, in the first game as well, which was a great moment for him. He had a good quote afterwards, like, I don't remember what it was, something about his smile.
Yeah, nobody has a bigger smile than him, just
That's
to
what it
be
was.
out there. He's
Yeah.
played in a couple of preseason games before he came for the rookie face-off, but
Yeah, but it was
hasn't played a lot, though. Only 4 games last year.
Yeah, but I honestly, his game is very simple, but it's effective. He's got great breakout passes. He's not like, he's calm with the puck. He waits to find his man. He's not trying to do too much at all, offensively or defensively. He's just kind of simple, and his shot is fine. It's pretty good. And he tries to get it on net as much as possible, and I like it. I thought his play was good. It was also, I want him to play in the AHL, but I do wonder if they think he needs to go back to, because he could still go back to the WHL.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they're thinking that maybe he needs one more year to really get his feet under him before going pro.
I personally think that getting the minutes in the WHL might be good for him, considering, again, that he only played 4 games last year. Actually, I asked John McCarthy about it a bit, and I asked John about, I guess, the next guy I'll bring up, Artem Guryev and Gannon Laroque, because both of those defensemen they're 20 years old, so they can either go back to the WHL or join the Barracuda. And I asked them specifically about Laroque. Do you think that it would be a good decision to send Gannon back, just because he's only played 4 games last year? So then, if you send him back, he can get a lot of ice time with the Victoria Royals, as opposed to coming to the Barracuda, and who knows how regular his playing time is going to be. But McCarthy wasn't showing his hand either way. He said that he can see the benefit for Laroque to get a lot of games in the AHL, just to see that speed and that level of action, or get accustomed to it again. Let's not forget that Laroque actually made his AHL debut a couple of years ago after his breakout season with the Royals. That was 2020-21. Anyway, I'm sorry, 2021-22. So anyway, I guess there are 2 sides to it. Me personally, I'm thinking that it's a better better for him to play more. And also too, of course, Barracuda will probably have a logjam of defensemen, and so unless you're a guy that's gonna more likely to play every night than not, then maybe you're hurting your development by.
There is an argument that he is one of the few right-handed defensemen. So there is something maybe if they care about handedness that he could be up higher in the lineup just from his handedness. But I'm also just selfish and I want to see him a lot on the Barracuda. If he can keep up with the speed, because that's always been my thing with Laroque is that his foot speed is not the greatest and he can get beat if he's kind of standing still.
Yeah, and that still looks like a work in progress after double hip surgery. So that's kind of what I saw. Though I did see, like you said, though, seemed to get more comfortable with the puck. I noticed he made a very nice cross slot setup, deceptive one in the Arizona game. I don't remember to who, but I took that down. Our next prospect or next defenseman I want to talk about is Artem Guryev. But before I get to Guryev, I did want to mention, I forgot to mention about Shakir Mukhamadullin, that Mukhamadullin's English is much improved, and I want to mention that we all last year I asked, can I talk with Shakir? And like, no, his English isn't quite there yet. His English isn't quite there yet. And so that was, in March, in April, when he was with the Barracuda after the Sharks acquired him from the Devils. And so anyway, sometimes it takes a guy longer than a summer to be comfortable talking. But we did an interview with Mukhamadullin before Rookie Faceoff, and he was great. He was funny. He talked a lot about the death of his friend Amarov. He showed a lot of personality, and also too a lot more a grasp of the language than I thought. So I want to give him props for it. He stayed in San Jose for most of the summer, and so clearly improved on that. And actually, here's another funny note too. He spent a lot of time with Brandon Coe, because Brandon Coe also spent the summer in San Jose. They hung out a lot, and Brandon Coe takes credit for Shakir's improved English. So
good, Brandon Coe.
Anyway, though, on to Guryev, and Guryev. I had a lot of fun watching him play. He's gonna be fun to watch wherever he plays, because he's one of those guys that really loves to hit. Like really gets he gets a visceral. You can just tell on the ice. He gets a visceral pleasure from smashing a guy into the boards.
Yep.
And of course, there's a flip side of all that. You love the attitude. He's also 6'4". He does skate pretty well. So he's able to be an impact player in that way. And also last year too, just to kind of show the kind of impact player that he is with those qualities, right? He's not a very offensive guy, but last year he was part of a trade with from Peterborough to Flint for Brennan Offman, and that's a first-round Rangers prospect, big-time scorer, at least in OHL, and Guryev was a big part of a trade for him. So that kind of shows that, at least at the OHL level, that teams, that he's very valued in that way, and I think that will be the case eventually. I don't know if it's this year, but eventually with at least in the AHL level. But of course, though, with guys who like to hit everything, there's sort of a couple things that happen. Though first, they can be over aggressive, chasing the physical game, which Guryev did at least on one occasion. I noticed just pinching, going for a hit, and just getting himself out of position defensively. And also too, a couple of times he just missed hits, flat out, along the wall. You heard, you saw him going in for the hit, and the next thing you heard him hitting himself against the boards. But A for effort though. And so overall though, I really do like Artem's game, and I totally get why Mike. You look at that draft class, right? Not a lot of guys got ELCs, and but you totally understand why Artem did get that ELC, because there is definitely something there to work with between his proclivity for violence and also just his attitude. He's a great guy to talk to. Just came out with a story today written by Josh Fragellin off of an interview with Artem that I did before the Rookie Faceoff. Great personality, dedicated to the game. He told a story about during the COVID year 2021, his draft year, the OHL was canceled, so no way for him to play games. He was living in Peterborough. All the rinks were shut down in Peterborough. So every day he would get up at 5 a.m. and his dad would drive him to Toronto so he could get some ice time somewhere. And then they would come back at 6 p.m., get back by 6 p.m. every day, and just do the same thing every day. Wake up at 5 a.m., get back home at 6 p.m., 4-hour round trip or so, 4 or 5 hour round trip, every day for a year. And so he's a guy that loves hockey, loves to play, loves to hit, and I love his attitude. And I guess the last thing I'll say about him too is that he got into that fight in the LA game, the first game against Artem's a pretty big boy, but he fought 6'6" Samuel Hellenius, a Kings prospect. And when I asked him, what prompted the fight, because earlier in the game actually, LaFerriere of the Kings got a good shot in on Guryev, and so I thought maybe, I don't know. Actually, LaFerriere's number was 78 and Hellenius was 79. So I thought maybe Guryev got the wrong guy, or Guryev wanted to take on the big guy because LaFerriere is smaller. But no, he just said that at that time he felt like the team was playing sloppy and that they needed that kind of jolt.
Yeah, and they responded too.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know about if there's a direct correlation, but nonetheless, though, you love that attitude, though. He is a team first guy, it seems like. And so, anyway, I think the Sharks fans who don't know him, I think will enjoy him in the coming years. I think just because his style so rambunctious out there.
Yeah, I watched Guryev for a while. When he was in the OHL, it was always fun because he would play when he was on Peterborough, when they would play Niagara, when Gushchin was on Niagara. It would be Gushchin, who's this big, and Guryev, who's this big, and Gushchin trying to basically get around him, and Guryev just smacking the hell out of the boards, trying to hit him, and Gushchin just kind of ducking around him. It was just like cat and mouse kind of thing, always, and it was very funny. But yes, I agree. He's interesting in the fact that we talk a lot about what your role is in the next level, and he knows his role, and he's going to keep playing it and hopefully get better enough that he makes a career out of it. So I liked his game. I thought, yeah, he can get himself out of position is the biggest thing. He really does love to hit people, and he will if he doesn't tone it down enough and really hone in on when he shouldn't hit people. It might be hard to
sure.
Up levels.
Yeah, because there's a point when you hurt your team,
Exactly.
So.
But I liked him.
He
had a fun game overall.
Yeah.
From the defense, we've gone through Laroque, Guryev,
Mukhamadullin.
Let's talk a little bit about Jake Furlong. Jake, I think he was the last minute.
He was originally in the lineup against the Kings last second. Cagnoni went in for him. McCarthy just said that it just was, they wanted to see Cagnoni in that spot. So Furlong wasn't hurt. It was nothing against Jake. So Furlong did play in the last two games.
Yeah, the last game in particular, I think he had a little bit of struggles with trying to break the puck out of the zone and too many turnovers. He had a specific one that basically went the other way for a goal, pretty much.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen in these kind of games. It's going to happen from every single defenseman, every single team. But it just didn't look like his strongest game. I think there's still a lot to work on with Furlong's. I'll say impact offensively, because he doesn't really have the decision making down pat to really push play offensively yet. So. But I did think he played decent overall.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a smart player overall, but it'll take time for that to kind of take over at this kind of higher level when we go from go from the Q up to the AHL to the NHL. So he might be a couple of years away. He did have like you mentioned a rough game against Arizona. He also got beat wide on a goal too. I'm not sure. I don't remember from who on the Coyotes. But for what it's worth, though, McCarthy did praise Furlong after the Vegas game. After both wins, I asked John just who are some guys who stood out, and like we mentioned earlier, he mentioned Chrona and Romanov, and then he would rattle off 4 or 5 names that just sort of jumped out to him. And Furlong was one of them after the Vegas game. So maybe a little up and down performance, but that's okay. I think obviously the big test for Jake, and had a very good season with Halifax, I believe, right, last year, and so he just had to build on that.
Yeah, and he didn't. I think Furlong also had the point shot that Bordeleau tipped in. From
Yes,
spot,
he did.
I'm pretty
yeah.
sure. I think that was
He
Furlong's
did. Yeah,
shot,
that was for a
so,
long shot. Yeah.
So yeah, up and down performance is the way to put it. But I don't think he's expected to. Actually, don't think he's eligible to be on the Barracuda this year. So he's probably likely going back to the Halifax. But a couple more guys. Henry Thrun only played 1 game. Didn't have too much to say about Thrun. It's also hard to get into and up to speed when you're only playing 1 game. Basically.
Yeah, McCarthy did say he liked him after the first game for what it's worth. Though I know that one of the LA goals was off of a Thrun mistake, but in general, though, McCarthy said he liked this game.
Yeah, Thrun Mukhamadullin seems like a fun pairing.
Yeah.
If they both end up in the
I was a little
AHL,
surprised that Thrun got ahead of Mukhamadullin on the power play. So I would have liked to have seen the other way around. Mukhamadullin with Eklund and whatever on PP1. But anyway.
yeah. I mean, he did that at the very end of the Barracuda last year, and it looked pretty good. So I imagine when he goes back, he's going to be power play 1 for the Barracuda.
Yeah.
But last guy to mention is Luca Cagnoni, who I think he's similar to, and he's also the youngest defenseman here, right? Out of this grouping. So I think the first game he was a little hesitant. I also think his backwards skating wasn't the strongest. He was having a little bit of issue matching speed with skaters in the first game. But by the third game, or by the last game, I think his calmness, and I speak about this with Cagnoni all the time. He's very calm. He doesn't panic. He knows exactly what he's going to do with the puck. He waits for an attacker to come at him, passes under his stick, does something smart with the puck a lot of times. He's not big. We all know that. He's 5'9", but he still finds a way to impact the game, even if he's not the most physical player. So he's smart. He just had a slow start to these games, I would say.
Yeah, and totally understandable for a guy who just got drafted. When you're looking at guys who just got drafted, you're not expecting them to dominate. You're just kind of expecting or hoping that they hold their own. And so, speaking of that, actually, let's just talk about him just because we mentioned Cagnoni, someone who just got drafted, Quentin Musty. And Quentin Musty, I think, impressed me just because he did hold his own. I mean, I don't think he was great. He wasn't great like he was at development camps, but consider that the Rookie Faceoff is another level, another step up on development camp, because instead of just skating against your own guys and maybe you don't want to hurt a guy and whatever, Rookie Faceoff, everybody's fighting for a job on their own team, and you're matching up against the best prospects from the other team. And also too, a lot of teams have older players too, right? They have players who are 23, 24. Sharks had a player, Vincent, he was 26. So you're matching up against much older players in some cases too. And so for a guy like Musty who just got drafted, I thought that he held his own throughout. He said himself that he thought that the first game was a little bit rough for him. Maybe throwing away the puck too much, and that might be the case. But in general, though, and McCarthy mentioned that he thought that Musty just looked like he fit in. Looked like, if you didn't know how old Musty was, and Musty's a bigger kid too, that, Musty looked like he simply, kind of belonged out there, I guess. And so even though he didn't wow, on this sort of progression track. If he keeps getting better, then he's going to wow in a year or two in this kind of a tournament. And there was one play that he made that was really nice in the Vegas game, and kind of shows a guy that was getting more comfortable with the speed, the increased speed, and he actually said something interesting about that. I did a story about it. I talked with Quentin at the Rookie Faceoff, and he said something interesting about uh yeah, it is definitely like faster and there's less space out there, but there's also more space and more time than you realize. And I think that's an interesting kind of. I bet that a lot of star players that they figured that out.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
for sure, right? Yeah, like let's say you're Eric Carlson, right? And like you go from Sweden to the NHL. Of course, the NHL is going to be, like light years faster and, a lot less space. But you figure out that, well, there's still, though, if you're good enough, there's still time and space. And I'm not suggesting that, Quentin Musty is Eric Carlson in any sort of way, but just the idea that, like you have that shock at first, like, oh, like, kind of that like culture shock or whatever at first, like, oh wow, this is going so fast. But then you start to assert your own game and you realize, oh, you know what, it is faster, but guess what, I'm good enough, I can hang with this. It's not that fast, I still have time and space. So anyway, just that play, very briefly, Musty had got switched up and he was at the point, and the pass went back to him, and he did just a one-touch pass to the slot that completely surprised the Vegas defenders. I don't remember who he passed it to, but it was a good chance. And so that kind of showing that kind of sort of creativity and deception, and
Yep.
not being flustered into rushing the puck or just like firing it from the point, right? Which is like the easy play, which is what I would have done if I was
Sure.
in that position.
Yep.
It shows, I think, a player that was and looked like to me was getting more comfortable as the tournament went on. And so again, even though he scored just one goal in the 3 games, but I think that Musty is very much on track with all the excitement that everyone had for him after Dev Camp.
Yeah. He also he had a basically like a rebound net front scramble goal in the Arizona game that was not terribly impressive, but it showed that he was around the play.
Yeah,
I
he didn't
like
look overmatched physically at all.
No, not really.
Yeah.
When he engages, he actually can play on the boards really well. I think some of the issue is, and he's very very young. It's just his kind of like peaks and valleys. Occasionally, he's not like, it's not that he's not following the play. He's just not taking an action. Like he'll just be kind of processing the play and just kind of waiting. And then you're supposed to got to do something. It's not
Right.
like it's all the time, but he's just he's a processor and he's really good at processing the game. It's just it's got the action bit has to like speed up a little bit sometimes,
Sure.
not all the time. It's consistency is I think the biggest thing, but I did like him overall. I had nothing really bad to say. You're right. Somebody or whoever mentioned that it seemed like he belonged out there. Do you think it was John McCarthy?
Yep.
That makes a lot of sense. He looks like one of the dudes that if you didn't know would be to assume was older than he
Yeah.
is. At
If he told me
18.
that he was a tryout or like NCAA guy, that older guy just coming on, he's like, okay. I mean, not terribly impressive for like a 24-year-old or whatever,
Yeah,
but
but
like
18?
he didn't look bad. But for an 18-year-old, yeah, then you extrapolate from there. So
Yeah, I liked him overall. Speaking of guys that do basically just point shots or like don't know what to do, so they just dump it on net. I think Cardwell had a lot of that, which was he'd turn around and then he wouldn't know what to do with the puck, so he'd just whip it on net. And occasionally, it would work. But I think his tournament was not bad at all. I think he just didn't stand out offensively enough to really move the needle all that much. But he was still like his normal Cardwell self, aggressive. He's a great he's great at battling on the boards, great puck retriever. He's been that way since juniors, even though he's only like 5'10".
he's very willing. He
Yes.
did add 7 or so pounds of muscle, he said. but I still wonder if that's going to be enough for him to make an impact in that specific area in the AHL. But he definitely is willing, though. He was throwing his body out there,
Yeah.
kind of like a forward version of Guryev, but way smaller. So
Yeah. He had one specific play in the first game where skating with the puck's out in front of him a little bit, and player comes straight at him, and he just holds up his left shoulder and just decks the dude, and then keeps the puck going. And the guy just like skates off behind him. I was like, hey, there's no way you're that strong. How did that happen? But it was just stuck out to me. Just like he completely decked the guy and kept control of the puck. And I really liked that a lot. Again, I don't know if the offensive capabilities are all there really. He showed off his shot a couple of times, and it's a decent shot. But it wasn't like he was dazzling out there with his hands or anything like that. So, I think he does have a proclivity for low percentage shots, what I would say about Cardwell. Any other forwards stick out to you that you want to talk about?
Let's go. Sure. Yeah, for sure. I have a few more here. Let's go with Halttunen, since we talked about Musty and Cagnoni and the recent draft picks. And let me say again too, Will Smith was not there because he's an NCAA. NCAA players aren't allowed to play in this tournament. I got asked that so many times, and don't know how many times I had to. So anyway, so Halttunen. So Halttunen, there is a lot to work with, especially when you're talking about his shot and his size. He's a big kid, but there is a lot to work on, though. A lot to work on. And so, of course, you love you love that he loves to shoot, and he does have a great shot. He has a hammer. He said that it's been timed at 104 miles per hour. He gave me the kilometers, so he can hammer it for sure. And he was looking for that the entire tournament. I think there are questions, and he mentioned himself too that the accuracy was off, or needs working on. But anyway, I'm not too concerned about that part because it's a legitimate plus tool for him. But a couple of the areas though that I think needs to be worked on, and I think that actually being and you mentioned this actually a couple weeks ago when we talked about. This is before Halttunen decided or it was official that he was going to London. And Keegan, you mentioned that, going to London makes sense to you because the Finnish league where Halttunen played last year is not a league that is forgiving to younger players. It's not the kind of league that younger players usually can get big ice time. Halttunen last year at least in the men's league and the men's Finnish league had I think like 1 assist in 27 games, averaged about 9 minutes a night. And so in London, of course, he's going to play a lot more. And I think that he has the right coach in Dale Hunter. Dale Hunter, as a player, was definitely not known for any two-way kind of slacking. And so I think Hunter should be a good influence on Halttunen because a couple of things I noticed with Halttunen. First, that his maybe he's got to get into leaner shape. He's got to skate more. He's got to move his feet more. I think a lot of times you see him kind of looks like at least kind of floating in the neutral zone a little bit. And second thing that overall I noticed is that his body language at times, he's got to work on containing his frustration. I think in the first game, in the game versus LA, he got caught from behind trying to break it out. I don't remember who caught him from behind. Someone caught him from behind and stripped him. And then, after the play ended, I think Romanov made the save, whatever, play stopped, right? Like he shouted, like you could, we were at City National Arena, practice arena. So there were about 500 people in the rink, scouts, some fans, media, right? There weren't a lot of people watching. So you could hear it. And he was like, fuck. And I wrote about it. It was audible, and of course it's great that a guy cares, but you saw that though throughout though, like when he would miss on his shot, it would go high, or he wouldn't get as much as he would on it. He kind of looked toward the sky. There's a little too much of that. You want guys who care, of course, so that's not a problem, but a little too wrapped up in that single play. You have to have that. You have to have a short memory too. In this sport, you make a mistake, you got to move on and not beat yourself up over every little thing. And so definitely, like I said, a lot to work with, but a lot to work on.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. My notes for Halttunen from the tournaments have basically all been the same. It's Halttunen shoots even when he shouldn't, and it's kind of like that. I love his. There was one like slap shot from like near the blue line that got like in the goalie's chest in a second, and I was like, holy cow! But
yeah,
again,
he can rip it.
Chest. He can really shoot the puck, but the problem is he really, with all of that shooting talent, he needs to pick his shots better. He needs to pick when he needs to shoot and where he's shooting at, because he misses high constantly, and he's trying to find that perfect shot, but there's really better ways to do it, especially on the power play when you can really go for rebounds, go for all sorts of things, and he would kill play a lot, and that's just not what you need to do. But he's going to go to London. He's got some time. He reminds
got a lot of time. Yeah.
There's a cautionary tale of a prospect called Teemu Pulkkinen, if you've ever heard of Teemu Pulkkinen.
Sure, I know Teemu Pulkkinen.
He was drafted in
Who's the other guy with the big shot? Martin Frick?
Martin Frick, that's the one. Teemu Pulkkinen was drafted in like 2010 by the Red Wings. He had an insane shot. One of the best shots.
He had a hammer, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But he never really. He made a couple of games in the NHL.
Yeah,
scored a couple goals.
He was on the Vegas expansion team. At least, I'm not even sure if he actually played with the Golden Knights. He might have just been in Chicago the whole year. But
And now he's playing in Russia. But the point is if you don't round out your game enough, even an elite shot can't take you very far.
Sure.
So, that's kind of the cautionary tale. But he's going to go to London. It's going to be good to watch him there. An interesting guy. Had his first career fight of all time is Tristen Robins, our 2020 second round pick, one of the 2020 second round picks. Robins, like even in his draft year and in juniors, was pretty physical. Like he would hit people and you could actually lay some good hits, but it's not something that he's known for.
Sure.
And then there was this scuffle that he got into in the last game that was with a guy like 5 inches taller than him.
Ben Boyd, 6'4", I think. Yeah. Yeah.
He did fine. I think
he did fine, actually. Yeah.
In the fight. But it was good. Like he was very engaged that whole game too. He was really aggressive and physical. He helped set up that goal that Musty had in the net front when it just seemed like nothing was going in for the Sharks. They had like power play after power play, and they just could not put a shot on net to save their lives for some reason. And this one was like, we're getting this one in no matter what. Robins helped kind of set that one up. So I thought he played pretty well overall. It was expected because he's a little bit older than everybody else, and he's been
he's been in NHL too.
In the NHL at the very end of last year. So it was expected that he would play well, and it's not like he dominated, but he at least looked like he could handle the level of competition.
Sure. And I guess with Tristen, I agree. He played well, but I think it's one of those things where, he's got to, I guess we had to figure out what his NHL role is going to be, because I'm not sure if he's going to be quite skilled enough to be a top 6 guy. But I don't know if he has kind of enough B game to be third line center or fourth line center. Maybe he does. He still has some runway left, and he does always his effort is I've never seen that questioned, and so maybe we'll see that. But I think it's obviously a very important developmental year for him. But speaking of the 2020 second round, his cohort in that round was Thomas Bordeleau, and I felt with Bordeleau that he only played the first 2 games, but you saw actually like really a good kind of some summary of like the best and worst of his play.
Sure.
In Vegas, you saw obviously the tremendous skill. That goal, he over the far shoulder in tight on the goalie, who by the way is 27 years old. So speaking of older players at this tournament, but then even the deflection goal when he was on his butt, which is some degree of luck. But if you watch it though, Bordeleau was trying to get at it. He wasn't like raising his stick up in defense or whatever, and it just glanced off his stick. No, he was trying to deflect it, and so to have that presence of mind, hand eye in that situation, he is a very very talented player. But then especially in the LA game, the weaker of his two games, there was casual passes in a neutral zone. John McCarthy said that he thought that in the second game, Bordeleau was playing a lot more inside, which is great, but also suggests that he wasn't so much in the first game. And so I think that of course, this tournament is like it's kind of like child's play for Bordeleau, as we could kind of see with that far side goal he scored, right? Like this is a tournament that if he put his mind to it, he could really I think take over at times. Yeah, I don't think we saw the best of him, and the competition level obviously is going to ratchet up quite a bit in training camp. And so I didn't see anything in this tournament that tells me that he's going to raise his level to what he needs in training camp. It doesn't mean it's only 2 games, so I don't want to draw any conclusions. But I will say though that I am reminded a little bit of actually a couple of years ago in Arizona for the Rookie Faceoff, and actually at all the Rookie Faceoffs I watched Ryan Merkley, and as Merkley got older, you expected him to finally put together a Rookie Faceoff, a tournament that was dominating in both ways, because that's the area that you need to see from Merkley, not the offense but the defense, and then that would spill over into training camp. Obviously, dominating rookie camp rookie faceoff is nothing like training camp. But if you could dominate rookie faceoff, that makes it how do you say it, more promising that you'll excel in training camp at least, right? And so I think with Bordeleau, it's still a little bit of a wait and see. Saw some good, saw some bad, and hopefully, he kind of takes to heart sort of the lessons from last year, and we see kind of a renewed Thomas Bordeleau during training camp. Really, again, I've said it before in the podcast when we talked about top 10 prospects. I love his talent. I love his ceiling. I am concerned about the sort of the commitment elsewhere. I will say though that the fit maybe. I will say though that it did look like he really enjoyed being back at center, and he kind of alluded to that too when I asked him about it. He just said that he feels like maybe a little more space to roam, kind of just maybe just more comfort, kind of. He just knows where he's got to go maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, it's exactly what I saw last year when they moved him to wing, is that he doesn't fit. It doesn't really work for him. His game kind of falls apart, and he becomes pretty ineffective in both ends of the ice if he's playing on the wing. So he's got to stick at center, I think. So it becomes hard to seat him in. But yeah, the on your butt goal is cool, and the short side goal or coming from the post there was really cool. His first game, I don't think he had a very strong game. He took one pretty bad penalty that he looks like visibly frustrated about. I think it was like an obstruction penalty of some sort that I noted down just because it stuck out that he looked like he was trying a little bit too much and it wasn't really working. But yeah, I've seen some like people or some people thinking that maybe he's going to make the NHL this year. It's possible, I guess, because they might need a third or fourth line center. But we'll have to see. If his training camp does keep on taking off, it's not like it's impossible. Bordeleau was on the overseas trip to begin the year last year, even though
Sure.
he didn't play, and then he went back to the AHL afterwards. So I think he's going to be one of these probably either late cuts or he might stick on the opening night. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, late cut, sure. It is worth noting though that the Sharks are deeper than they were last year at center. That might be arguably their strongest position, and they're not very strong in a lot of areas in ice. But Couture, Hurdle, Granlund, and Sturm. If you don't use Granlund at wing, that's actually a very that's a playoff caliber center group in my opinion. Obviously the wings aren't need some help. So I'm not saying the Sharks are going to make the playoffs, but up the middle though, they can be very very strong.
Yeah. So, and that's if they use Granlund at center.
Sure.
But defense and wings and goaltending groups make lots of help. Anyway, all right, let's talk about
again. You don't have to cloud the issue with facts, all right? So.
Let's talk about Eklund's one game. Eklund only played in the first game.
Sure.
I think he had one assist in that game where he kind of like took it into the offensive zone, got ran into a body, but left the puck. I think it was Robins who got the.
It was Robins, yeah. Actually, that was the main play that caught my eye because that's sort of even though it's something that he was doing last year already, but sort of a extension of sort of the added muscle and
Sure.
Eklund talked about feeling like he was faster with the muscle this year, whereas last year he was still maybe getting used to the extra sort of mass that he added to himself. But anyway, I what I liked about that play that was something that's the kind of play that he definitely wouldn't have done the first year. He basically, very much like a point guard in basketball. He just attacked the paint and dropped it off, for Robins for the perimeter shot, and the shot found the net, and so very much just kind of hurtling his body right into the teeth of the defense, and then dropping it off. That's the kind of thing that you want to see more and more from him. And I think the other positive, obviously, too, is that with his shoulder injury last year, shoulder surgery that ended his season, that he looks fully healthy. And I think I'm excited to see what he can do in a full NHL season. I expect him to, even though there is a lot of veterans ahead of him up front for the Sharks. I'd be disappointed if he doesn't make the Sharks team.
Yeah, it feels like it's the year. He looked really fast. He had lots of speed out there. I think he held on to the puck for a while, like a little bit too long.
Sure.
In that first game, but he had lots of speed. And yeah, you're right. Like old Eklund might have kept trying to stick handle or kept trying to like go away from the net.
Or curl away from the middle, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, try to hit the late man, which could still be a good play too. Yeah. But curl to the point, hit the late man, hit the trailer behind him, let the trailer, attack the middle.
But new Eklund was just like, no, I'm going to take this guy out, leave the puck, and then bam. And it was like it was like microcosm of what I think Eklund has worked on for like a year now. So, but I liked his game overall. I thought he was one of the Sharks' best forwards for that game. It just was not like he put up tons of points like he did. Was it last year that he like dominated the rookie tournament?
Well, he had that shootout. He had that shootout goal. Or not shootout goal. Was it a 3-on-3 goal? Or maybe it was a shootout one. That spinorama goal he scored against Anaheim. Yeah.
I think that was a rookie faceoff game.
Yeah, it was a rookie faceoff. I don't remember if it was a shootout or just 3-on-3. But
yeah, I think could have just been a 3-on-3.
Yeah,
like an overtime goal.
It was 3-on-3 because I just remember the pictures. Yeah, like there were teammates around right, like immediately. Like no, it was 3-on-3. So,
but but he still had a good game. One guy I want to mention that is. Notably, my favorite Sharks prospect is Danil Gushchin, who Danil, like his first game was fine. Lots of perimeter play. He had some good zone entries. He got his shots through. He had a good, I think, secondary assist on the power play in the first game. The third game, I don't think he had a good game at all. I think because there was no it felt like everything kind of fell on his shoulders to be the offensive force because there was no Bordeleau, there was no Eklund.
Sure.
And he was playing lots and lots of minutes that game. It felt like he was trying to do way too much. Like he just could not make a simple play. And that's been a knock against Gushchin for a while, is that sometimes when he doesn't know what to do, he overcomplicates the play. And he was doing that a lot in that third game. It was part of the reasons why they couldn't get any shots through. It just felt like he wasn't making the right decisions offensively. Whether or not this is like one game or a trend, I don't know. It's hard to say. Gushchin is notoriously really slow to start seasons. He often will take a little while to get up to speed and really get comfortable. But once he does, obviously, we've seen him do really well at last year. So I think it'll be interesting because I expect, like you said, Eklund to be up, Bordeleau to be kind of this in between. Maybe he's up, maybe he's down. So a lot of times it might be just Gushchin carrying the offensive load for the Barracuda. So we'll have to see how much he can handle basically being the guy. So I don't think it was his strongest showing. Doesn't mean that's, again, he's still notably one of my favorite Sharks prospects. So.
Oh wait, he's gone from your favorite to one of your favorites. Wow, that was a rough tournament, Danil.
I felt like it's hard to pick favorites. No, he is still. I love Danil. He's excellent in a lot of ways. It's just sometimes he can overcomplicate things, and I think he did a lot of that in that third game. Still my favorite Sharks prospect.
I will say about Danil that I was looking for sort of a more obvious, not to get into like, big beefy guys, whatever, but like I was looking for maybe a little more just definite gain in muscle and whatever from him. He says that he gained a couple of kilograms, so a little less than a couple of pounds of muscle over the summer. So we'll see, because he'll need it at the higher levels. Obviously rookie tournament, I mean, again, like with Bordeleau, it's sort of a tournament that is not, he's kind of too good for it, as is Bordeleau, as is Eklund, that sort of thing, At least they aren't real tests for him, at least I would say. And so we'll see this year, especially in camp, because I think that even though he's not a favorite to make the team out of camp by any stretch, he might be a sleeper a pick, if he has kind of... taking it to another level from last year physically and whatnot. Yeah. And I don't think I quite saw that. And I talked with him, interviewed him. So we'll see, maybe I'm wrong about that, and, maybe too, like, there's a couple pounds or a couple kilograms of muscle, but also more quickness, which is, if he's both those things, then he will be, that much more slippery and dangerous at the AHL level. But I'm not quite sure about that. And yeah, we didn't quite see it in this tournament, but this is just a 2-game tournament, and so we'll see when camp opens on him.
Yeah, I agree though. I think he didn't seem like his physicality had significantly improved from last season. On the boards and such, it didn't feel like he was anything above what he was doing last year. It's not like it's terrible, but it's not the best hitter, not the most physical.
It's not even about, like, I'm not worried about him engaging and doing that kind of stuff. Just more like, holding guys off a little bit, right, and then hitting the holes like just a split second faster than maybe he would have last year. That's the kind of stuff that's going to be the difference between him being a 20-goal AHL scorer and an AHL player. Just that little bit of strength and quickness.
Yeah. Still love you, Danil. All right. Do you have anybody else to mention from the Sharks forwards?
I got a couple more. First, Brandon Coe. And I mentioned Coe being a terrific English tutor to Shakir Mukhamadullin. But Coe also says that he added 20 pounds. He says he ended last year at 195, which, for a guy as tall as he is, 6'4", 6'5", or something like that, right, is, like a size of a goalie. And anyway, though, he says that he added 20 pounds. He may have made a mistake. He said 20 pounds of muscle, and I'm not sure how likely it is that 20 pounds of muscle over a summer. I mentioned to John McCarthy, and John McCarthy just kind of looked at me like I don't think that's
maybe
possible.
20 pounds total if you're really
Yeah, maybe
bulking
20
up,
pounds
but-
total, and a lot of muscle. A lot of that was muscle, maybe something like that. So anyway, so let's just presume that Coe did add that bulk. McCarthy did say that he looked bigger, and he looked bigger to me too. He still looks like maybe he could fill out even more still, but he definitely does look bigger to me. And just in general, I say with Brandon's play. I did see, more inside and more kind of battling, using that frame of his more. I think it's still a work in progress. I don't expect him to necessarily like light up. It still might be a little bit of a project there, but I did see some improvement from last year. Last year, he was too light.
Yep.
For the league, even though he's 6'4", he's too light for the league, and he was still playing too much of a skill game when he can't live off that at the pro level. And so I did see a little bit more of that sort of using his physical attributes more instead of just relying on perimeter and his skill. So there's some promise there for sure.
Yeah, he definitely needs to continue to adapt, continue to add pounds and pounds of muscle and such. His game, I don't know if that's the ever been really his style, and it feels like he really needs to change into that. But given his talent level, and
it's a mental change.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's physical. It is also a mental change that he needs to undergo onto his game. So, I think he had a decent like overall tournament. I don't think it was particularly standout, but I think he did okay.
Like I would say like a guy of his physical attributes, if he has a grinder first mentality, and then his skills are kind of secondary, that can be a pretty valuable NHL player.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, if he can get to there, sure.
Yeah. So, but if he thinks of himself as a skill player at the AHL NHL level and sort of that grinder, that physical, that's secondary, then I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he's going to be so valuable that way. So, but I did see some growth from last year, and so I think I think there's some promise there. He clearly did take to heart what the Sharks wanted him to work on. He did work on it this past summer, and like I said, he stayed in San Jose for the entirety of the summer too, like Mukhamadullin did, and so that speaks to both of those guys' sort of dedication toward improving themselves under the eye of the Sharks and the trainers and whoever was here working with them over the summer, advising.
He's
Always
seemed well liked too. I always had this like image in my mind of him holding the tiny Marchment cup above his head. I don't know why. It's like every time I think about Brandon Coe, I just think about that tiny little Marchment cup, and he's like holding it like this. It's I don't know. It's stuck in my brain, but he always seems well liked in the locker room too.
Yeah.
And I think this year he's going to get a little bit more because there was games where he was in and out of the lineup last year just because of how many forwards they had. I think he's going to be higher up on the depth chart this year to really try and solidify his game. So.
Yeah, I think you would hope that he's able to solidify himself at least as a every night bottom six AHL forward. And then you just kind of move up from there, and maybe the year after that he
gets in the top six.
Yeah, and then we start to think about him in the NHL. So the last guy for me that I really watched or I have notes on is Ozzy Wiesblatt, and I liked actually a lot of what Ozzy did. Did Ozzy only play one game? Did he? Oh, he played a second game. Sorry, he played both the first two games, and I saw I don't know. Again, I think being a first rounder is both a blessing and a curse, right? Obviously, you make more money, and that's great and all that stuff, recognition, right? But then more is expected of you because you were a first round pick. If Ozzy Wiesblatt was picked 2 picks later, like no one would be writing stories. Well, like I wrote last year, first round pick goes to ECHL because that's a headline. That is a headline. Sorry, that's that's noteworthy. But if he had been a second rounder or a third rounder, no one would have batted an eye probably. And so anyway, I don't know again if he's going to fill that kind of offensive sort of two-way offensive role that was envisioned of him when he was drafted. But I did like a lot of what he did in this tournament in terms of a lot of times he carried the puck in with speed and clearly attacked toward the middle, kept going toward the middle. Didn't always work, but kept going toward the middle. And so I like that. I like him taking the puck off the wing into the middle consistently. Also too, he got a good hit on 6'6" Mason Primo in the Vegas game, which was very enjoyable to watch. And so Ozzy, that's what you want to see out of him. I mean, I know that people's opinions of this guy is mixed, but Rafi Torres, and if Ozzy can be a half of what Rafi Torres was at Rafi Torres' best, not talking about all the dirty stuff, but like in terms of just the physicality and very good hands. Rafi Torres was a multi-time 20 goal scorer. If he can be half of that player, then that could be a pretty good fourth liner. And so I did see some promise from Ozzy in this tourney, some improvement from last year, and so a little bit like Cole, just hopefully you see that kind of they may both end up, their ceilings may end up being role players at NHL. Nothing wrong with that, and so they have some tools to be very good role players in NHL if they can kind of just keep getting better and kind of accept that role too.
Yeah, my headphones died. That's why
okay.
Came off. But yeah, Wiesblatt's kind of like if Brandon Coe needs to adapt his style to being more of this grindy kind of thing, Wiesblatt's already doing it, and I think that's
sure.
Like he came in as like not a high octane offensive guy, but like a speedy transition guy, skilled passes. That was like what he was drafted for, and a little bit of feistiness, and now it's like turning into more and more feistiness, more pestiness.
Fair point.
And I like that change because I think that's what's going to actually get him into the NHL is if he continues on that path.
Yeah, and to speak for Ozzy a little bit, the middle of last season, you started seeing that change in his game. And so I want to give him credit for that because, he was from at least day one of last season to the end of the season, might have been the most improved player on the Barracuda. Granted, he started off basically being like, maybe ECH caliber, but nonetheless, though, from day one of last season but to the end, he's the guy that took, clear strides.
Yeah, he feels like he'd be a very good penalty killer as well because he's fast. He hits really well. If he can, maintain positioning well, he can get the puck and kind of just play keep away a little bit. I think
Maybe
he's got that kind of game to him that he can at least hold the puck.
He'll need to add those layers if he wants to, to progress. So I don't believe he did much PK last year, but if he can add that layer, though, that's going to be helpful.
When I watched him in juniors, he did, but it was, that's juniors. But anyway, it's an interesting change with Ozzy. I think he's leaning into that role as long as he doesn't go too far off the edge and just like throwing dirty hits every night. Then I think he's still got, because that's possible.
Yeah,
too.
Don't go full Rafi Torres.
Don't go full Rafi. You want to go half Rafi. All right. I have one more guy that I think I just want to mention briefly. Was Bradley Marek. He played center for a couple of games for the Sharks, and it's not like he stuck out to me in any this guy has an unbelievable skill kind of way or anything like that. It was actually more of the kind of the opposite. It's more of like he just hustled extremely hard. He was always coming back hard. He felt like he filled this role of a physical big center that the Barracuda probably need right now in a bottom six capacity. So it was a smart signing by them over the summer to fill him out from. I think he came from Penn State. Is that right? No, Ferris State University for NCAA. So anyway, got him out of college and got him onto the Barracuda. I thought he played well. I think he had a goal as well.
He had 2 points in the first game.
Yeah. So, I thought he played well. That's kind of the edit. It's not like he has tremendous skill or anything like that. He caught my eye a couple of times.
I just want to mention too with Wiesblatt that Wiesblatt did not PK last year for the Barracuda. I have all of the Barracuda ice time from last year, by the way. If anyone wants, if you guys want to look back on that. But anyway, I think looking at that, so that's going to be a good comparison for this coming season. So if you see. Wiesblatt averaging, a minute or two on a PK, that's going to be a sign of growth in his game.
Yeah, and it's also hard because the young forwards, they might not give him that kind of responsibility.
Well, Robins had it.
Bradley. Yeah, Robins. Well, he's very versatile too. He's a good.
Yeah. So it's Eklund did too, not as much as Robins, I think, but Eklund did too. So it's out there for the younger players. It is a developmental league, and I don't think that Barracuda have forgotten that. And so it's out there if Wiesblatt's good enough.
Mm-hmm. We'll see if Bradley Marek gets on the penalty kill. Probably,
yeah.
So. Anyway, that's just my last shout out. I can't think. I don't have anybody else written down on my list.
Yeah, I don't either.
Specific. All right, look at that. We are wrapped up then. Anything else you have to say about the prospect tournament before we get out of here?
No. Well, I have some stuff. Maybe I'll share someday. So there was some unpleasantness, but I don't know. I won't talk about it today. So.
Okay. All right. We'll look forward to the unpleasant story later on at some point. It was a lot of fun. It's always a great start to the training camp. We're gonna have lots of coverage next week after we get some hopefully some news. We'll see what happens during the first couple of days of training camp. Maybe we'll have some news before next week's podcast. So, all right, guys.
Bye, guys.